tools and supplies, but you need a place to track your stuff, cause you're so disorganized. You click open the web page, you heard about a critical role, and now you're ready to kick some butt in that mine shaft full of no's. It's TNT, TNT Beyond, yeah, TNT, TNT Beyond. You got your stats, you got your swords, and you got your invisible wall. It's TNT, TNT Beyond.
Hello, and welcome to this week's and Beyond. I'm Adam Bradford, the product director for D&D Beyond, and I'm joined by...
I am Todd Kenrick. I believe I am the content director at D&D Beyond.
You believe
I am.
that you are? Okay,
I believe-
that's good. I'm glad that we've got that sorted out. We have a really special guest with us today, and so sometimes
Yes, we do.
Todd and I just yuck about for a little while until we pull in that guest. But I think that we have so much that we could talk about with this individual that we are going to do our best to get this going. So please welcome Matt Colville. There he is. He is showing up now. Hello,
Hey!
Matt.
Hello. Your guest isn't that special.
Oh, very, very special. We're
You folks are
incredibly
special.
happy to have
Yeah,
you.
I'm not.
We're
Well,
really
no,
glad
you're
to have you.
special.
Are you in like a space capsule right now?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm on my way to Mars. Yeah, screw Elon Musk.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, that strongholds and
He's funneled
followers.
all that
never
Kickstarter
gonna
money
happen
into
now.
his own
Yeah,
shovel.
I just salvaged a spaceship and this is the office where I do all my writing and where we do our live stream. And there are lights in here, big fluorescent lights, but if I turn those on, then you'd see the room quite well, but I would become this weird dark shadow. And I'm already weird enough.
No, this is fantastic. It looks like you're in a space station. I love it. You are.
Yeah, I have many
People are now-
questions later about the lights.
People are calling
Oh,
you
they're
the
great.
king of
These are
Kickstarter.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, say that again, Adam.
No,
I'm sorry.
it's fine.
No,
Like
we're gonna talk over it.
we can talk about the lights if we want to. Do we want to just talk about the lights for 30
No,
minutes?
I'm sure
No,
you know
no.
it was going to be a great question. And Todd and I were just going to nerd out about my lighting
I
setup.
destroyed it. I am sorry.
No, people call you the king of Kickstarter these days.
Well,
So
yeah, I perhaps foolishly I said I used that phrase. I thought ironically in a live stream with Matt Mercer and Mike Merles and Adam Koval, and I didn't think I was. I thought I was making fun of myself, but now I'm doomed.
that is exactly what you are, the king of Kickstarter. So for anybody who's been living under a rock, what has happened with this Kickstarter? And can you tell us a little bit about what the product was that was going on in this Kickstarter? And then we'll talk about how much did it cap out at? $2 million?
So I've got if you have no idea who I am, awesome. That makes me very happy. I've got a YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel, I was a video game developer. I was a designer and a writer, and I started the YouTube channel because I wanted to make more Dungeon Masters. I wanted to show people that it was easy and fun to do, and the channel did really well. We got to have 250,000 subscribers, and over the course of the channel, I would talk about a lot of stuff that I've done and homebrew stuff that I have. And one of the kind of the white whales of the videos that I would talk about, people really wanted, were my own homebrew rules for strongholds, for your character in Dungeons and Dragons, spending a whole bunch of money and building a stronghold and what it does. Because I've never been, I'm very pro crunch. I don't like rules that say, hey, you could do this cool thing. And you're like, why would I do that? And it's like, it's just neat. It's just neat to have a stronghold, which is basically how the original game worked. And I'm like, but that's not good enough. That's not a good enough reason. There needs to be mechanical benefits for me doing this. And so I had my own rules I developed over the past 30 years. And in the 80s were kind of an amalgam of my ideas and the other, like every Dungeon Master, when I started out, had their own homebrew rules for what does it mean when the player's handbook says at 7th level you can build a keep. Okay, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And so I had these rules. I had these rules and I talked about them and people wanted them. And I said, let's turn it into a real product. I thought of all the stuff, all kind, I've got all sorts of weird little homebrew rules, but I thought it could be a real product, a real book. And so we did a Kickstarter for it. And I told people there was going to be a Kickstarter for this. Is, my friend Jeff Tidball, who's one of the guys in charge of Atlas Games. He gave me some incredibly good advice. He said, let people know now they can sign up for an email alert when the Kickstarter goes live. So me in a video talking about the Kickstarter, I would say, if you're interested, give us your email and we will alert you. So we had 8,000 people sign up for the email alerts so that when the Kickstarter went live, it exploded. Like we had a pledge before we announced it. Like we just went live. There was no alert. We hadn't sent out an alert. We hadn't tweeted about it. And there was at least one person who had kind of reverse engineered when it was probably going to be this Friday in the morning.
Wow.
The Kickstarter was going to go live and they were just refreshing the page. So the Kickstarter, we blew through all our stretch goals. This is an important lesson, folks. When you do a Kickstarter and they say, how long do you think when do you think your product will be ready? Don't give the date that you think the core stuff will be done. Give the date that you think it will take to do the core stuff and all of the add-on stretch goals. Because I didn't really believe that we would unlock all the stretch goals. And so I thought, well, we'll get the book done in September. And then we unlocked all the stretch goals in like 2 hours, I think. We blew through all of them. And I went to work that day. I was a lead writer at Turtle Rock Studios, which is a fantastic video game company, the best place I've ever worked. And I was crying, literally weeping on the way to work because this was already, it'd only been 2 hours. And this was already such a life-changing experience for me. Also kind of bittersweet because it meant I was leaving. It meant I knew I was going to be leaving behind the life and family that I had in my last career. But to go on and do, I hoped, good things in this hobby. And so we raised, in a month, we raised about $2.5 million. And that includes, that was the 2.1 from the Kickstarter, and then another 400,000 or so from people using the pledge manager to add stuff. And we've made more since. Like you can pre-order the book right now. And every time I do a video now, I say, hey, if you want to support the content, because we now have a company. That's part of what the Kickstarter went to, was starting this company. The other half of the Kickstarter, by the way, was I want to stream my next D&D campaign. We had tried streaming the last game. We had tried streaming back, I think, in 2014. I've got a picture on Facebook showing my friends and I trying to get our office at Turtle Rock ready to stream. And the technological challenges were too great for my bar quality. We could have done it very badly. And I was like, no, I don't want to.
Right.
So eventually we started streaming. We solved the problems at Turtle Rock. We streamed at Turtle Rock. We built our own lighting truss out of PVC pipe and hung cameras and microphones off it. And we proved that it could be done. Yeah, it was super janky. We still have it. And we're going to do a video showing the original truss and the new truss. It was super janky. And we were all crammed into a tiny room at Turtle Rock Studios. And there were a couple problems, not the least of which was Turtle Rock Studios was growing and expanding. And the general manager is like, Matt, if it were up to me, I would give you, as much space as you need, but we got to put desks in here. And so we were evicted. And at that point I said, let's go to Kickstarter. Let's see if this is another piece of advice my friend Jeff Tidball gave me. He said, just if you need to raise money for your stream, do it in the Kickstarter and just tell people that's one of the goals. And so that's why it wasn't called the product, the book is called Strongholds and Followers. The Kickstarter was called Strongholds and Streaming. And so we had miniatures. We want to make miniatures, and we charged quite a lot of money for those minis. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me interject for just a second, Matt.
Yeah.
So,
why was the hour already up? Sorry.
Wait, no, we're getting.
That's it. Sorry,
getting a lot of
that was your
echo.
time.
I'm not sure where it's coming from.
I feel like I could talk forever.
Anybody else hearing echo?
Yeah, I
Is it
hear an
me?
echo.
Okay.
It might be because I've got my speakers instead of my headphones, so
That
you guys
might
might be
be.
hearing you. So let me turn you guys down and see if that makes a difference.
So this is a great follow-up question in just a little while about stream quality, because we do want to get to that. But
I apologize. I'm used to doing stuff like this at my home office, and I don't have my headphones here. So I was,
no headphones. All right, so we're
guys are
gonna
my
do the best we can. So you mentioned, as far as the product goes, that the book itself is called Strongholds and Followers. and the entire Kickstarter was called Strongholds in Streaming. And I'm looking even on the website right now, Matt Colville, the product. And this was an incredibly intriguing read for me. Can you talk a little bit about what that part of this means? That it's not just this book, it's not just streaming. What are you actually selling as part of this company?
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on your point of view. What you're referencing is a blog post on our website. I wrote when the Kickstarter wrapped up, I wrote a long blog post about kind of how we got to where we were, and that got a lot of press, interestingly. And then there was a point, months after that, where I had an idea for a video and I wanted to upload the video, but I wanted to record and upload a new running the game video, but I had been working in my home office and my computer had crashed and I needed to set up basically a new studio inside my house. And so I moved all my equipment to where my laptop was instead of my home computer. And I recorded and uploaded a new video, but because it wasn't in the normal space I was normally recording in, it didn't look as good, right? It had all sorts of problems with the audio and mostly the video. Most of the video didn't look that good. And I watched these videos. If it's a 20-minute video, I probably spend 4 hours watching it. So I had watched it and I was like, yeah, I know, I can tell that it doesn't look as good as the other videos, but the actual quality of the video, I thought, what I was saying, I was really proud of and thought was great. And so I uploaded that video and people went crazy. People were like, this is terrible. Why does it look so bad? And that's all they wanted to talk about. And I was like, wow, is that where we are now? Is that 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 it doesn't matter what I'm saying? People aren't interested in engaging with the content. And I had other interesting experiences, kind of post Kickstarter realizations, and friends of mine telling me things like, yeah, but you're not Matt Colville, the writer in video games who's got this cool YouTube channel. Now you're this dude who raised over $2 million. And that changes people's
expectations. And now there's an expectation.
Now there's an expectation, and that's which I may or may not be meeting literally right this second with my audio quality, but that was the subject of the blog
It's not
post.
your show.
That's the subject of the blog post we're reading. The Matt Colville, the product, was me just talking about how, like, now that we've raised this money, people have wildly different expectations, and there's a phrase people use, a term people use called entitlement, which they use pejoratively. But one of the things that we who create this kind of content want is we want people to feel a sense of ownership over it. Right? We want people to feel like, I asked for money and we raised money. Yeah. People gave us money. And so they feel like they feel like they are invested in this. And when they see a new video go up and it doesn't look as good as the other videos, they have a different reaction than they did back in the day when it didn't really matter how my videos looked. People were focusing on the content. So that's that Matt Colville, the product, is now Matt Colville in general, and MC, or maybe Matt Colville in specific, and MCDM in general, is this company. It is a product. It is a thing people have certain expectations for. I'm not just a guy even though I am just a guy on the internet. The perception is I'm not just a guy on the internet. I'm somebody that raised a lot of money. And so, for instance, that affects everything. It affects, like, I just uploaded the video yesterday. I was really proud of it. But the signal to noise ratio in the comments is kind of crazy because we're trying different stuff with the audio and the video because this is a brand new space for us. And people act like we haven't watched the video and that they're the only ones who know that things are different. And that if they don't find a way to tell me, and they're like maybe I could text him. Does anybody have his phone number? They're trying to email me. They're direct messaging me on Twitter.
This is like really therapy weird. For me right now.
I got his phone number.
If I tell him that his noise gate is too aggressive, he might not know. And I'm like, listen, I knew before you knew. I knew before you knew, and I made an evaluation, and I uploaded the video because I thought it was good. I thought the quality of the video was good. I stand by that. But it's very weird. People are like, I'm just trying to help. And I'm like, I didn't ask for your help, bro.
I watched
I pay people to help. I'm not asking for. So that's this weird thing where before the Kickstarter, that wasn't a problem. Now it's a problem. And that's what that blog post was about, is that feeling of now I am something people feel they have some degree of ownership over. Of course they do. They gave us the money for us to start a whole new life. Right. Like, I hired 3 employees. I started a new company. Of course they feel they have ownership over it. So that's where we are right now. It's just a phase transition. That's all.
But what is that feeling like to like suddenly, because like you said, like you went from like, oh, I think this Kickstarter will do kind of good, and this is something that I've always wanted personally for myself in D&D, and it's something that I loved about old school D&D is that stronghold and stuff. But to go from just an explosion of like King of Kickstarter, like you're like, wow, this has struck a chord with this many people. Do you have to recalibrate your brain to like adjust to like the magnitude of that of to that expectation?
Well, I mean, to get psychological for a second, there was a point where we were at a local, this was during the month the Kickstarter was live. There was a local convention in Los Angeles, game convention. And I said to the team, and this is basically, these are people who were my friends and my coworkers transitioning into becoming my employees, right? It's a very, very strange thing.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, hey, I've been to a dozen gaming conventions, more than a dozen. I used to be in the tabletop business. For about an hour and a half, I worked at Wizards of the Coast. But these folks have never done any of these things. They are new to tabletop, period, much less new to role-playing. I said, hey, let's go to a gaming convention. And there was a point at this con where I was sitting there trying to figure out, like, who am I now? I just raised, I'm about to raise $2 million. Like, who is, I've never been somebody that had money. Right? Who even am I? That was a very weird 45-minute period of trying to deal with my own ego. And when I say ego, I mean literally in the sense of my sense of self. Right. And then, one of my friends came up to me and started talking to me about D&D, and all that went away. So I definitely think there's this thing you learn about where they talk about how, like, if you have great tragedy in your life or great triumph in your life, it's going to change your personality for a few months. And then about 6 months later, you're going to go back to where you were before, right? And that's how grief counselors can tell whether or not there is a real problem. Has it been more than 6 months, and are you still dealing with this? Then it's a problem, right? Because huge peaks and deep valleys affect you, but then even though they may still persist, your personality goes back to normal. That's where I feel like I am now. I feel like things are basically normal. I feel like I'm still the same person I was before. I have to be, I'm a boss now, so I have to kind of be careful what I say and how I say it. But I've always thought I was somebody who was careful.
I think
it's just a little different.
One of the most special moments, you actually got me a little bit, Matt. Like, I'm not going to lie. So I was watching yesterday's video about splitting the party, which I want us to get into that in a little while, because you've now had playing evil in a campaign video followed right by splitting the party. And then you told me that one of the influences for your campaign upcoming is like Heat. And I'm wondering, are people going to play lawmen, and then other people are going to play criminals, and you're going to split them all the time? Anyway, we'll get to that in just a second. But you really, really got me. And I teared up. Like, I actually teared up just a little bit. That little bit of thing, like in the back of your mouth, when you said a line that, thank you to the 30,000 people out there who have changed me and my friends' careers. And like, we're on this new path now. And it was just really emotional for me to just think about the fact that we live in a world now where people can affect that kind of change through something like Kickstarter. And I think that everything you're saying with this transition with your friends and everything, how has that changed that relationship significantly? How is that transition going a few months into this now?
Well, I mean, there are positives and negatives, but the positives vastly outweigh the negatives. Like, if you ever hear me complaining about anything, like it's only because I need to vent, because we're human. But the positive, like, I've watched, I feel like I get to watch friends of mine who now work for me kind of, I don't know how else to put this. It's going to sound poetic. I don't mean it to. Kind of like blossom. Like, in video games, I couldn't be this person. I had to, but here in tabletop, because tabletop is much less, I think, toxic. Here in tabletop, I can just love the things I love and get excited by them. And we get to work on these things, and we get to make them, and we have an audience that supports us. And it's like getting to relax and unclench after having spent years with your guard up. Like I was very lucky in video games. I worked at a great company. I worked with great people, but video games, the industry and some parts of the fandom can be super toxic, and you got to be careful what you say and when you say it. And tabletop isn't like that. So that's one of the unintended positive side effects, is that I get to watch my friends who now work here kind of get to go back to being like 8 and 9 years old and be excited by things unironically and just get really enthusiastic about it. And they could do that in video games, but when they did, they had to watch themselves, because, you know, being genuine and being authentic can open yourself up to being attacked by people who want to keep you down. And now they don't have to worry about that. So that's one of the, go ahead.
No. You're absolutely right. Like the difference, like when I was reporting on E3, I did that for like, I had 10 E3s and interviewing game developers and having to like also push past all that marketing training that they have so that they can just talk about themselves and talk about their lives and why they love the game that they love, instead of like whatever line they were told or however way they were told they had to be on camera and all this other kind of garbage that they were told. Like just breaking through and getting them to open up and be a person, like that was so difficult in the video game industry very often. And tabletop is so completely different. Everyone you talk to, you're right. Like you feel like you're 5. Like you're just allowed to be happy and to enjoy your hobby.
You get to enjoy the things you love without fear of reprisal. And we're also in a position where we get to, it looks like we get to make the products that we want to make. And the only thing that matters is whether or not the fans and the people online are interested in it. And if they are, then they'll support it. And this has been true. People who've been following the videos know this. I do not like gatekeepers. I like tastemakers. I like DJs. Right? I like DJs who are like, I just love music and I listen to more music than you ever will. So let me turn you on to stuff you don't know about. Right? That's what I like.
Right.
I don't like studios, or I don't like publishers. I don't like music labels. I don't like movie studios. I don't like folks who decide that they get to decide what you get to see. So for us, we have content that people like, and we may get to keep making more of it. And that is, that notion of, hey, we're going to put a book out this year. And then we'll probably put a book out in 2020. And that'll mean we got 2 products done in 2 years. And none of us have done that in video games ever. Like it's great if you can get a game done in 3 years. Right. Yeah. And so that, and also, having something physical, like we've got our sample minis here. The minis are, which getting minis done was the most controversial thing we were doing. And it very quickly became the least controversial thing because we partnered with great people. Trenchworks in Utah. They just got it all handled. And so we have minis here. We've got, blank samples of the physical book, just, white pages, but having something physical in your hand, the audience is smaller. Like they're like 6 million some odd people, 6 million, 2 million some odd people bought like the last game I worked on. And the audience is smaller, but the connection with that audience is so much greater. And you have a physical product you're selling, and people are going to be using this in their games at home, and they tell us what they think, and we want to know what they think. Like we want to make the product that they want to use. And that whole relationship is so different, and it's so, I think, much more positive and vital. Like, we've got good jobs.
What and where are you at with the book right now? Like we were talking before we started the show. Like where are you? What stage are we in right now? And what does that feel like?
We're in the final stages by any stretch of the by any definition. We are close to done. I just literally less than an hour ago, I got the completed edited manuscript back from our editor, and 5/6 of it had been through 2 editing passes. And 1/6, this was the first editing pass. And so now this is the first time where, because for those of you who weren't involved in the Kickstarter or didn't pledge to be in the playtest, the way the development of the book worked was we took the rules and we broke them down into what were called packets. And we would release the packets to the playtesters one at a time. And those packets got released based on what was done and ready to be tested, not based on the order you would read them in the book. Right? So that worked great for playtesting, but now we're at the point where we have to assemble these different disparate sections into a manuscript, and this is the beginning of that. So we've written everything, we've tested everything, we've edited everything. Now I begin the process of ordering it into something that has an outline and a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's going to require a little bit more writing, right? Because now was the first time we're going to see, oh, actually, we never really gave the preamble for this. We just explained it and handed it to the testers. So now it needs a little bit of a preamble. But that's a very minor amount of writing, I think. There is quite a lot of explanation in the book already. So there's a couple of, I think, maybe a week's worth of work left in the manuscript. And in the meantime, we're still plugging away at the art and the layout. I don't know how many pieces of art there are in the book. There's a lot. I think there's over 100.
Oh, fantastic.
There's a lot of art in the book, and it's the art. We're incredibly happy with the art in the book. But there's a handful of pieces left to be done, and the layout is we're still in the process of designing the layout. So that's how the book is going to look physically laid out. And so when those things are done, then the book is done.
So I heard a
I'm so
release date
excited for you.
of October. No, I'm just joking. We won't do that to you.
It's we deal right now. The thing we deal with the most is people just asking, "Where's the book?" And I sympathize with those folks, but there's nothing I can do except say we're working on it, right? And the reason they are asking, "Where's the book? Where's the book?" is because it's not out yet. If it were out,
yeah,
we'd all be talking about something else. We'd all be talking about that. Is going to be an interesting. Let's talk again after the book comes out, because if people thought they had opinions about the lighting and the audio in my last video, wait till they read the book. They're going to have lots of opinions, right? There's going to be a lot to talk about. There's there is what I consider some controversial design in the book. There's stuff that I designed, and I'm like, there are people who aren't going to like this.
Right.
But it's what I felt like I needed to do in order to make the book work. And so it's going to be fun. There's also stuff that I based on the playtest, I already know people are excited by, and it's going to be a hit. So that's going to be a lot of fun, is seeing how people react to the manuscript once it's out.
All right, we've got
and you've got a live stream.
questions. Yeah,
Todd,
go
ahead.
Let's get a few from the social medias out there. We got several of these earlier. So here we go. This is a big one, and this is one that Matt, you and I might need to tackle a little jointly. Will strongholds and followers come to D&D Beyond? If so, when is that going to happen?
This is something, actually, Adam, for those of you who are watching and might not otherwise know, this is something Adam and I have already talked about. In fact, I think we've talked about it more than once. And it's something that both of us want to do. I would like the content to be available to everybody. It's just a question of logistics. And, now is probably a good time to start talking about that again, to revisit it, because we're getting to the point where the text is almost done, right? Yeah. Whereas before, it was a lot of work and there's stuff I haven't even thought about and don't know anything about, which is stuff like, how do you charge for content on D&D Beyond? And is there third-party content on D&D Beyond? Matt Colville doesn't know. I have no idea.
That's exactly right.
This is something where Adam and I are going to have to talk about.
Yeah, we're trying to work out details. We have nothing that we can share yet, but I can tell you that we would love to see it happen. We're trying to march down that road. When we have more to share, we certainly will. So that was one. So we'll get into, let's just talk it out right now. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Let's just hash it out right now, live. Full transparency.
That would be revealing. That would be a very revealing live stream.
All right, let's go to one more, and then we are going to shift to talking about movies, because I can't actually wait to get into this part. But one more that we got from social media. And I'm being a little bit choosy here. All right, so, and this is from, where did it go? Oh yeah, here we go. This is from Sal Guz at Evadorn Prod. As both a player and a DM, what is your favorite magic item ever that you have either received or given out to players, and why? Favorite magic item.
I have favorite magic items like the Infernal Machine of Lum the Mad and the Apparatus of Qualish, which I don't think I've ever Actually, I think I may have used one of those two items is like a mech, basically. It's like a crab that you get. It's like you get into it and you pilot it around. And I think my friends and I think that's actually in an adventure that my friends and I played through when we were kids. And I love that kind of stuff because to me, that's what D&D is about. D&D is not, I mean, a +1 sword has its place, right? But you know, you can get any game you play. You can go play Hearthstone and get a card that does +1 better than the last card you were using.
It's just a stat.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a stat. And I actually have quite a lot of affection, speaking of magic items, and there are rules for this in Strongholds and Followers. I didn't realize this was going to be a plug at the beginning of the sentence, but halfway through the sentence, I went, wait a minute. I have quite a lot of affection for the old school first edition. This is a +1 sword, but it's +3 against lycanthropes, right? And then for the rest of the game, that player's like, is this a lycanthrope? Does it change shape? What counts as a lycanthrope? I love those, and there are rules for that in Strongholds and Followers. And how to make them, I should say, how to make items like that in Strongholds and Followers. So, you know, I like those really weird magic items. And there's stuff like the Book of Vile Darkness and the Book of Exalted Deeds, which I think are neat. Yes. But I always, when I looked at those, I thought there should be more. I had my own idea about how magical books should work, right? And so I put that idea into Strongholds and Followers. There are 10 different codices is what they're called, codexes. But that's the actual answer to the question is when my paladin, one of my all-time favorite characters, Anthony DeVries. This is a character I started at 0 level because in the hardcover Greyhawk book they released in the 80s, there were rules for playing 0 level characters. That was awesome. Yes. We used them. It was a Greyhawk campaign. So I played this character from 0 level to like 13th level over the course of about 2.5, 3 years. And we were going through a classic adventure that I think now is pretty obscure, which makes me happy because it means I can do a video about it. And that was the Bloodstone Pass trilogy. And there's I think the third adventure in that series was, I think it's Throne of Bloodstone, and it says, you know, adventurers will say this is a module for characters levels 1st through 3rd. This is an adventure for 5th level characters. Throne of Bloodstone said this is a adventure for characters level 18 to 100. So we played through that adventure and it was crazy. And I got a Holy Avenger. And this had a big impact on my ideas of the design of the game, because a lot of the items in the Dungeon Master's Guide, you could find those items like a Holy Avenger, for instance. You look at a Holy Avenger and you're like, this is crazy. Look at all the things it can do. But if you found an actual Holy Avenger in a module, in a published adventure, it would have all of those abilities plus a bunch more. That the ones that you would find in an adventure were the ones you could get in the DMG++. And so this was a sword called Crusader. It had a personality, it had an ego, it had all sorts of crazy extra special abilities. It was dedicated to a god I had never heard of, but if I wanted to, I could talk to that god now, thanks to my sword. And there was a point where we were fighting a bunch of pit fiends, and I was very badly wounded. And the question becomes, do we fight or do we run? And I was a paladin. And I was like, we don't run, man. We don't run, we stay and fight. And my DM rolled some dice behind the screen, looked at something I couldn't see and goes, good, that's also what the sword wants you to do. And that's when I was like, oh, word? Like, that's where we were. We were in danger of me saying, hey, let's get out of here. And the sword going, no, we're not leaving. So that, I think that's the best item I've ever encountered. And it's very personal. Like, there's nothing particularly special about Crusader qua that item. It's just my own personal connection with it.
It's such a wonderful next tier of play when your everyday items have an ego. Yeah. That's what I loved also.
And they're going to take over.
School D&D.
They want to drive the machine for a little while, right? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that constant back and forth is so great for role playing and makes like 18th level, 20th level and above so much more fun. Now we wanted to talk about we wanted to get into movies, and this ties very much with your live streaming, correct? You're going to be live streaming your game, which I'm really excited for. I'm even more excited now that you've mentioned some movies that are going to be some key inspirations.
So let's clarify that.
Yeah, in fact, we had a sort of a quasi-informal meeting where I said to the team, I just realized that we basically have to pick a day to start streaming, because if we don't pick a day to start streaming, I will continue to put it off. And we picked a day, and I'm not going to tell anyone what it is.
Oh, come on. We could totally.
Well, because I want to reserve the right to push it off. I think it's important to pick arbitrary deadlines and then work toward that deadline. And then if you have to, you can punt because it turned out it was more work than you thought. But if you hadn't picked that arbitrary deadline, you would never have gotten to that point.
I
So,
can really
that's
relate
why
to that, Matt. You are absolutely correct on that. So
The
the
project manager
movies
will tell you.
themselves, though, are we getting into the movies that you listed that we were talking about the other day? Are those actually movies that are going to influence the streamed campaign? Because that
Yes.
really intrigues me. Oh, that's amazing. So what were
Well-
those movies? And let's just unpack those a bit and talk about why those are going to influence this upcoming campaign.
Well, I think everybody who's a dungeon master, when they read novels or watch TV or watch movies or even listen to music, they are inspired by the stuff. I remember a friend of mine ran an entire campaign based on Iron Maiden songs. That was the only memorable thing about that game. And so we all are inspired by fiction, and being inspired is step one, and step two is rip it off. And so I'm often looking at, for instance, I had a good friend of mine who wants to play D&D, and I got to know him, and I said, "Oh, I think I know exactly what kind of game he wants to play because I watched his favorite movie, which is Tears of the Sun." And we talked about why it was his favorite movie, and I realized talking to him about it, this is the adventure I need to run for him when we play, which we haven't done yet, by the way. This is the adventure I need to run for him because that's what he loves. He loves that fantasy. It's a movie about the Navy SEALs. He loves that fantasy of playing hyper competent people. He is not going to have fun playing D&D if he starts off as a first level schlub with that everyone treats like you're just a first level adventure. Get out of here. So for me, stealing plot lines or moments from movies and books, for me mostly movies. Although I did have very good success. I ran a solo adventure for a friend of mine based on a Terry Pratchett novel. That went really well. And so for me, getting ready for this stream, it takes place in a giant city. It takes place in the city of Capital, the greatest city in this or any age, the city of the Great Game, which is kind of the biggest city in my campaign setting. It's my version of Waterdeep or Tolis, or there's a bunch of every campaign setting has its big city. This is mine.
Palanthus.
And so you start thinking about what?
Oh, Palanthus
Sorry,
from Dragonlance. Sorry.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So there are all these famous big cities, and they're all different versions of each other, right? They're all different versions. They're all, what separates this one big city from another? And I've got a Excel doc because I do a lot of work in Excel. I've got an Excel doc that lists all these different ideas for adventures, and because it's a big city, they're all about cops and robbers and spies, and private eyes, right? And so movies like there's a TV series called The Sandbaggers, which I can't tell anybody about. I certainly can't tell you people about, because if anyone ever goes and watch that, their opinion of me is going to drop precipitously because they will discover that virtually everything good I've ever done, I ripped off from this incredibly obscure 70s TV show. Happily, no one's ever heard about it. So as long as I keep my mouth shut, people will think I'm a genius.
Too late, man. Too late.
So it's a show about about MI5. The movies that I've been looking at are movies like two Michael Mann movies, Thief and Heat, because they're all about cops and robbers. And in fact, here's where I am right now. I don't know if I have time to do this, but one of the things I want to do is I want to start publishing little short stories, little like 2 or 3 page vignettes, wouldn't take long to write, that would go together and make a little series about a character in this city who is a expert thief, basically stealing the plot of Michael Mann's first movie. An expert thief who gets recruited by the mob. This is an independent operator who gets recruited by the mob to go do work for them and chafes at that and has to compromise and has to sell their soul to the devil in order to try and get free. I want to write that because I want that character to be an NPC that the heroes in our game have to go after. And the heroes in our game, from their point of view, this person is a villain, this person is a thief, and now a murderer and somebody who's done horrible things, unbeknownst to the heroes, because they're trying to extricate themselves from this relationship with the mob. And our players don't know that. Our players may never find that out. Our players may never care. They may not even take the mission. They're an independent. The heroes are a mercenary company. I'm going to be putting jobs in front of them, and they're going to have to decide which jobs to take, and they're going to be free not to take some jobs. But for the people watching, that notion of I got to watch this character grow, this character arc grow and build, and then they became an NPC in this world, and that was all set up. That was all set up for the heroes going after this person. What happens if the heroes catch that person and that person doesn't want to go quietly, right? Because no matter what, not you, not anybody will get in my way, right? And that drama is going to mean one thing to the heroes. It means something completely else to the people who've been watching online and have read those stories. I don't know if I have time to do that, but that's when you talk about how does fiction, how do movies influence me as a DM? That's one of the ways they do it.
That's a great way to also make your players question like what is good and what is evil, because like you feel like sometimes I think sometimes a mistake is just because like a path has been provided for you doesn't mean it's the right path, right? Like just because somebody tells you in D&D someone's a villain, they might not be a villain. This may not be the right thing you should be doing.
Well, that's also a big part of my channel, the Running the Game series. I talk about how important it is for players to change the conditions of the test, right? And you should be treating everything the DM tells you like it's the Kobayashi Maru. Because if all you ever do is if you accept the things the Dungeon Master tells you. So in this instance, if you accept the idea that this person is a thief, that they are bad, that we have to stop them, we have to take them down. If you just accept that, that's one adventure, right? But if you challenge it, which you're free to challenge everything, then a very different adventure would reveal itself.
And those two movies, Heat and Thief both definitely capture that feel. I'm very excited about your campaign now.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean,
movies like that.
You know, to set expectations. It's going to be weeks after we start streaming before the mercenary company, before the chain even arrives in capital. Just getting there is going to be part of the scenario. And a dungeon master's reach should exceed their grasp. Else, what is heaven for? Right? That notion of I have all these crazy ideas. I have all these crazy ideas, and you're going to hear me talk about those ideas, and you may be disappointed to discover that they don't manifest themselves in the campaign, but that's only because that's true of every dungeon master ever. Every dungeon master has crazy ideas, and some of them they're able to work in, and some they can't, and you can't be let down by that. You can't be like, oh, I failed. It's like, no, that's not how it works, right? We have to have many, many inspirations, of which one or two, and we never know which ones, one or two are actually going to thread their way into the campaign. And then when they do make their way into the campaign, you have to be ready for them not to manifest themselves in the way you expect it, right? The players may not interact with it the way you expect it. And that is not a bug, that's a feature.
Yeah, that's the sign of a great dungeon master, is someone who is delighted by you kind of sometimes tearing down, not tearing down, but like just making the story their own. So you may have made this elaborate city and this elaborate plot line, and they just went in a direction you had no idea. That nothing makes me happier as a dungeon master. It makes me so happy. Like even if they abandon your plot line sometimes, it feels great because they have a great reason to do it. And great dungeon masters.
There are all sorts of tricks. One of the things I'm looking forward to streaming so that I can show people how, like, sometimes the players will ignore stuff or interpret things incorrectly or come up with their own motivations that just leaves you completely stumped, and you're like, I've got nothing. Like I have nothing, and that happens, and I want folks to see that happen live, because there are ways that you can stonewall the players and they don't realize they're being stonewalled, right? Because you can check the clock and go, actually, we only have 45 minutes left before everyone's going to want to go home. All I have to do is stall for 45 minutes, right? And then I have an entire week to figure out what the hell happens next, right? So that's sometimes the players do unexpected things and you're inspired, but that's not there. Nothing guarantees that. Nothing guarantees that you will be inspired by their weird choices and the strange directions they go off in. You may be completely baffled and stymied, in which case you still have to solve that problem, right? You still have to figure out, okay, now what? And so there are certain tricks, obviously, like the number one is orcs attack, right? And now the players have something to do for the next 45 minutes until you buy yourself some time. And that's going to be part of the process too. So I think setting expectations is a big part of success. And there are definitely going to be people who are going to assume that Matt Colville seems like he knows what he's talking about when it comes to dungeon mastering, and he raised a lot of money. Therefore, the stream is going to be, an amazing work of art. No, it's not going to be. It's going to be me running the game, and it's going to be warts and all. And that's my goal. My goal is to show you the real, down to earth. We're going to have pre-mortems and post-mortems. We're going to have videos where I talk about how I think tonight's going to go, and then you're going to get to watch it happen, and then I'm going to talk about what just happened or what I think about it. And that's my goal. And so it means letting some people down because they're hoping for some big epic, narrative, but that's not what I'm working toward. What I'm working toward is something that I hope is going to be a good D&D campaign. And even the best campaigns I've ever run had problems and failures and stuff like that. And my goal is just to make sure people get to see that.
And I think this really aligns with your really driving goal in the first place, which was to encourage other people into dungeon mastering. Because if you can show that picture warts and all, it's going to give people that ability to say, hey, this is something that I feel like I can do. One of the things that you brought up in that discussion of movies, Tears of the Sun there. So you mentioned that there's a player that really enjoys that movie. And so that player is maybe not going to be satisfied with, the level 1 killing rats in the basement kind of play.
Yeah.
What is your strategy going to be? Because I'm assuming the characters are probably starting at first level or something reasonably low level.
That's a friend of mine who is not. That's somebody else who's not part of this campaign.
I see.
I don't want to say his name because I don't want him to find out that this is the adventure I have ready for him. I want to be a surprise. But this is they're going to start at the first. Both he in that one shot. It won't be literally one night. It's probably going to be one adventure over the course of like 4 weeks. Both him in that adventure and the players in this upcoming campaign are going to start high level. In fact, I think the Tears of the Sun game, the characters are going to be like 7th level.
Okay.
The chain of Acheron is what I think they're called right now. The chain of Acheron, those characters are like 5th level. And in fact, if I could start them higher level, I would. But I don't want to run out of adventure. If you know what I mean? Like I don't want to run out of cool stuff to do. So there's this weird the lower a level they start at, the more runway there is for cool stuff to happen. But the higher level they start at, the more we reinforce that fantasy that they are the officers of a quite large mercenary company. And the opening of the campaign is about what happens when things go wrong. And they're no longer 5 people in charge of hundreds of soldiers. There are 5 people in charge of many fewer. And so that notion of these are mostly, I think with one exception, they're all players that have played D&D before. So one of them is going to be playing D&D for basically the first time with a 5th level character. And that's going to be tricky. But the difference between I've never played D&D, here's a 1st level character, and I've never played D&D, here's a 5th level character, I think is actually pretty minor. Because the sheer number of concepts and data on a 1st level character sheet to a new player is quite staggering. And 5th level, you're just adding a couple of more options. It's not that big a difference. Your character, thanks to 5th edition, thanks to bounded accuracy, your character doesn't change that much from 1st level to 2nd level, etc. You get tiny little incremental bonuses.
In fact, just having those extra options at 5th level, I'd argue that for some players, because they don't know the limitations that they have, being able to play the first time at 5th level,
can I attack again?
Actually, be a better introduction.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Well, one of the things that I love about starting at higher level, not starting at 1st level, is that it gives the characters way more freedom to invent a cool backstory for their hero. You are already somebody who has fought. If you're a member of the Chain of Acheron, you have already served in many different battles. Right. And because I don't want to overburden the players with too much expectation as far as creativity goes, these are people who are not writers. Right. I said, here's a list of battles this mercenary company has been in. But they are free to invent new ones, and they are free to tell me. In fact, I've asked them, like, what did you do in these? And like, pick 1 or 2 of these battles and let me know, how is it that you got promoted to officer? What did you do? Right. That notion of I'm a character who has already been all over the world and to other planes, other worlds, is something that you can't do with a 1st level character.
Yeah, how did you distinguish yourself? I really like that concept. Todd and I are going to be involved in a game that we can't quite talk about yet. In the future, that's going to start a little higher level.
Let's talk about it.
And so, but I really like this concept of how did you distinguish yourself in order to get to this level. I think that's a really great concept, and we'll end up stealing that for sure, Matt. So how do you think that How do you think that this ongoing campaign that you're going to stream, do you see that streaming as happening over the course of, 6 months, and you've kind of got this big, long, like connected story arc? Do you see this as being really long term? Like, Critical Role, I'm not exactly sure how many years we're in store for here before, between now and when they get to 20th level. How do you see the strategy being for what you're streaming going forward?
That's a good question. I have no, yeah, it sometimes frustrates people, including good friends of mine, because I often plan for failure, and they feel like that's defeatist, and they feel like that means I'm I'm somehow questioning the validity of what we're trying to do, and that upsets me because it's like, no, far from it. I don't take success as a given. I never do in
Mhm.
anything. Right? I never assume that everyone's going to want to keep doing whatever this is we're doing forever. I always want to try to respect the players and my friends, and say, if you get burned out, if you get tired, that's fine. There's no shame in that. So, the vast majority of the D&D campaigns that I have started ended after less than 3 weeks. Right?
Mm.
We started, we played for a little while, it didn't work. It didn't work. I had an idea, and the idea didn't pan out. Or we played for, I said 3 weeks is an exaggeration. We started at first level, and we played to third or fifth level, and then everything petered out because
Mhm.
things weren't. It was too much work on my end, and the idea I had wasn't paying off, or the group wasn't gelling, or people weren't motivated, and that to me is normal, right? The number of campaigns I've run 2 or 3 games and played in one or two that each lasted for 3 years, and we played every week. Right. And those are my lasting memories. My memories are of my Birthright campaign, of my Homebrew campaign, of the Turtle Rock campaign. Those are the 3 campaigns I ran that lasted for months and months and years. But they are grossly outnumbered by the number of campaigns I started. We played for a couple of levels and then everything petered out. Right. So what's going to happen with this campaign? Which one is it going to be? I don't know. It would be foolish of me to assume that by definition it has to be one of the campaigns that lasts for years. No, that would be the opposite of what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is show you the real thing, right? This is a campaign, by the way, I have run before. I ran the same campaign when I was working at Pandemic Studios. Now we only played for like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 months, and then we were crunching on Mercenaries 2 for 4 years. And that crunch was real. That was 80, 90, 100 hours a week, and it was insane. So that killed that
Mhm.
D&D game. So I've run something like this campaign before. I am doing a lot of prep work for it. The players are ready and they're engaged. They chose this campaign for many. I gave them a list. What do you guys want to play? But that doesn't mean I am open to the fact that it could be, 4 or 5 months from now, and it's not working. People aren't having fun. I'm not having fun. In which case, we'll do what I've done every other time. We'll take a break and we'll try something else.
Yeah.
Right. So
Why is
it
just
may be
fun
that
get
we
to
play. Yeah, that's the my goal is not to produce a TV show. I don't think that's anybody who does. Maybe I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but the people I'm familiar with, the things that succeed are we're just trying to play D&D like we normally do. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to show people this is the actual process. And if it fails, a lot of people would be let down because they want that narrative. They hear the stories I'm telling about what I plan on doing. They're like, that sounds fucking cool. I want to watch that show. But which is better for the audience? Which is better for the running the game audience? Seeing it succeed or watching it fail? Which would be
right.
more of a learning experience? Now, when I say better, I don't mean, oh, I hope it fails because that would be great. No, no, no. I mean only that the lessons that you would learn in seeing everything kind of collapse like a flan in the cupboard would be really juicy lessons, and there'd be a lot to talk about. But there'll be a lot to talk about no matter what. So I'm planning on success. I'm hoping it succeeds. I'm hoping we play for like, I would imagine getting from fifth. Like there is an end game, right? I do have an end boss for this campaign. I know who it is, and I don't know how the players are going to get there, but there are a couple of different paths they can take. And if they get there, it's going to be huge and monumental. And I hope that takes like 2 or 3 years. And then if that works, we'll do something else.
That's
Great
fantastic.
answer.
Yeah, that
I mean,
that
he even did the
demystifies the game
eyebrow
for
thing.
people.
He did the eyebrow thing because it was like he thought it was going to be surprising to folks. I loved it. It was good.
I got these eyebrows. I might as well use them.
Absolutely, they're killer. We've got a couple of questions from chat that I'd like to get to. We've got about 5 minutes. We'll try to sneak a couple of these in, and then Todd, if you want to be thinking of like a capstone, you can ask the last question and put a
A lot of
nail in
pressure.
everything. Yeah. All right. So BK Shell asks, as an adult, have you ever run for younger players like teenagers, but perhaps? And if so, do you have any tips for doing so?
No, I've run for teenagers when I was a teenager. And I've run for a friend of mine's son, but my friend was very he's a great dad, and he was super like was not going to like he waited until his boy was really actually old enough to play with us. There's a difference between being old enough to play and being old enough to play with us, right?
Yeah.
Because he remembered, he is a friend of mine that I've known since we were 15, and he remembered what it was like to play when he was a teenager. And he's like, and so this is a friend of mine whose son, he plays a lot like we did when we were kids, in that he revels in doing evil things and doing disruptive things. Why? Because you don't get to do that in real life. Because it's a fantasy, it's a fantasy game, especially when you're a kid, and I think also when we're adults, right? We feel like that's why the Incredible Hulk is a popular superhero for 5-year-olds, because they feel helpless. They feel like the world, there are adults and teachers everywhere, but the Hulk is this, he's strong, he gets to destroy stuff and just goes, rah.
This was He-Man,
I think
too. Yeah, I have the power. Yeah,
exactly, that fantasy of what if I didn't have to do the right thing all the time? What if I didn't have to go to work? What if I didn't have to go to school? What if I didn't have to do my homework? What if I could just do whatever I wanted? And indulging in that kind of fictional evil can be a lot of fun. But now that because he's now, in his early 20s, he does it in a responsible way, right? He compromises with the table and stuff like that. Whereas if we were playing with him when he was 15, he would not. He would just get grumpy and pissed off. So I have not run for teenagers other than being a teenager. And I just generally think two things. Again, this may not be helpful because I'm remembering when I was a kid, but teenagers are smarter than you give them credit for. They can handle more complex stuff than you think. And when we were teens, by the time we were 17 and 18, we were already dealing with incredibly complex politics and relationships. We wanted our characters to meet and fall in love with spouses, so that we could have a generational game, so that our characters' kids could play. So there was romance, there was politics, and we were 17 and 18. Kids can handle that. It doesn't have to be hack and slash. But at the same time, I think if you're younger than about 13 to 15, if you're younger than that, your kids will want to play with you because they like the attention they're getting from their parents. But they will not then on their own go and read the books and engage with the content. You have to be, I think it's 13 to 15 is where kids start opening up the Dungeon Master's Guide and going, oh, look at all this stuff. I want to do this, right? I like that fantasy of there are right answers. Kids hate ambiguity. They like the feeling that there are right answers. And that's one of the fantasies that D&D provides is you look at the player's handbook and it looks like this is a system that you can use to run a world. The real world does not have such a system. And so it's a huge, role-playing games appeal to kids starting at a certain age. So that's my.
We've just got a couple of minutes.
This is my big capstone moment. But I'm actually really curious. What is your favorite character that you played, and was there like a key moment of failure that made you love that character more?
It's tough to choose, right? It's tough to choose. Probably my favorite. My all-time favorite character. One of my favorite characters. I don't know. I'm trying to pick an answer I haven't picked before. It was probably Saket the Atlantean, who was a character in my friend Jim's Albion game, which was Fantasy England, and prehistoric Fantasy England, where humans were basically like dirt farmers with nothing. And elves and trolls were the two civilizations, and the humans were caught between them. And my character was from Fantasy Atlantis after it falls. So I'm a character from a place that has like technology, basically, like from their point of view. Like I know about crop rotation and stuff like that. And so I loved playing a character who had I ended up having a purpose. My purpose was I'm going to lift these kind of like they weren't hunter-gatherer, but they were really primitive pre-civilization humans. I'm going to lift them up. And that was great. And we played for a while, but eventually I think there was like a total party wipe. And that's how that campaign ended. It was quite anticlimactic. But we had a whole arc that lasted for 3 years before that, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's what I remember. I don't remember how it ended. I don't remember that kind of like things kind of petered out. That things peter out all the time. That's not significant. What was significant was we played for every week. We played for 3 years, and there was an amazing story arc with a beginning, a middle, and an end.
I've got to jump in now because this segment and this interview is going to have to peter out too. We are out of time.
No.
Thanks so much, Matt Colville, for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching today. Join us next week with we're on with Jeremy Crawford, so it's going to be a lot of fun
I gotta watch
next week as well. So thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.